and welcome back to State and Local, and Merry Christmas. I'm here with another candidate for the 9th Norfolk District Representative slot, vacated by Dan Winslow. And I'm very pleased to have my guest, who's currently a selectman in the town of Walpole, and he's an attorney. And my guest is Chris Timson. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. It's a busy time.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, good. Now, why don't we begin? Why don't you just tell us something about yourself? I was just curious about your training and some of your experience, why you feel maybe that this is the next step for you.
Sure. I went to Boston College, undergrad, then I went to Suffolk Law School, and I became a full-fledged lawyer in 1988, and I've been practicing law since then. I started out working for an insurance company doing insurance defense litigation. So I still do a fair amount of litigation, but I'm on my own. I have my own practice for many years now. So I basically handle people's problems. People come to me, they have a problem, they need it to be resolved, and that's one of the things that gives me great satisfaction, is finding cost-effective solutions for people.
So it's civil, typically civil law.
Typically civil, yes. Although I will handle occasional criminal things, but that's not the focus of my practice. But again, it's because there's someone that I know or someone has been referred that has a problem in terms of a criminal matter, and they want me to handle it. So to the best extent that I can, I'll do it. In terms of my background and whatnot, continuing on, I moved into Walpole about 15 years ago, and I was raking leaves in my yard, minding my own business, and a woman came up to me. I didn't even know her. She said, "I heard you're a lawyer. The town meeting representative for our district is not going to run next year. Will you do it?" So I said, "Let me ask my wife." So I asked my wife, and she wasn't thrilled about the idea. And I was going to say no, but I thought about it. And the more I thought about it, I thought that I could give back to the community, use my skills as an attorney, my knowledge of the law to help out society and the people in Walpole. And so I decided to run. And from there, they asked me to be on a bunch of committees. Then they asked me to be on the Finance Committee. And then I was asked to run for the Board of Selectmen.
Oh.
So that's how I got involved in this.
And how long ago was this?
I've been on the Board of Selectmen for over 7 years now. I've been elected 3 times. So I like to think I've been making some pretty good decisions. I've gained the trust of the people of Walpole. And so I'm very happy about that. I also like to think that I've done a lot of good for the community. I've tried to make cost-effective decisions to bring things about that are good for the community. And you can look at my background there, and I've got a good history of success in doing that.
Now, you've always been an unenrolled voter.
Yes, I have.
Now,
although I can't remember, I mean, if there was a time when I was real young, I can't remember back then, but essentially my adult life, I've been an unenrolled voter. I didn't switch to run for this office.
Which, of course, you would have been in good company with Bloomberg. How many people have done this?
I don't know, but that was not my style.
No, I agree with you. You're absolutely right. So, do you think in the mind of a voter, when they see someone who's unenrolled, what do you feel the lure is? Would it be more appealing to somebody who's become disenchanted with both parties, or do they feel like, well, we need somebody who's, we've got this virtually a one-party legislature? Do you think that signals that you would be, say, very neutral, neither conservative nor liberal?
Well, not exactly. I've been out knocking on doors and meeting people in the 9th Norfolk District, and I think I've found that a vast majority of them are just like me. The majority of voters in this district are unenrolled, and that doesn't mean that they're not conservative fiscally, which I am, and that doesn't mean that they might tend a little bit less conservatively on the social issues. I think when you look at me, I'm someone who's fairly middle of the road that likes to find cost-effective solutions. I want to handle taxpayer money with the trust that's been given to me and do things in a way that people will say, okay, he's making reasonable decisions. He's doing the right
That would be very
thing.
refreshing in Massachusetts when you think of all the stuff that's gone on the past year. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I like to think that's why I've been elected 3 times in Walpole, because people see that I have a different perspective. I don't have an axe to grind. I'm not in this to do anything other than to try and help people out
No agenda.
and do the right thing and move things along.
So then they must have planned for that fabulous library while you were selectman, was that right?
Absolutely true.
I mean, I was over there the other day. I mean, it's very impressive.
Well, it was interesting. When that was, when that came up as an issue, I supported the library. I think that societies are kind of judged by how they keep their libraries. That's the body of knowledge that we have. And a lot of people said, hey, people don't use libraries anymore. We don't need a new library. That library is probably the busiest public building that we have right now. It is getting used by lots of people.
Well, a group I belong to is over there
Yeah.
once a month.
And when I looked at that library decision, we were going to get money from the state. The state provides money for building schools and building libraries. So to me, it would be a terrible waste of an opportunity to not take that state money and build this library when we had the opportunity. So that's part of the reason why I was in favor of it when we had the issue in front of us.
Now, would you? What do you think you would bring to being a state rep? I mean, you've already discussed, your, general view of the world, but what in particular do you feel? Now, I understand that. Since there are so few Republicans, the Republicans are very busy up there on the different committees. You were going to tell me what committees that you might be interested in. Of course, I guess it's not up to you which ones you go on. I suppose they decide for you. But you had said you were interested in certain committees that you might like to serve on.
Sure. Let me split that up into 2 parts. What do I bring, and then committees. And remind me if I leave the committees. But what I bring the thing that I've been successful with in Walpole. I do my research. I make sure that I know what the issues are. I make sure that I know what all the constituencies that are affected by that issue are thinking and what they're saying. And then I try to bring that knowledge to bear with my own personal experience and try to make a good, solid decision. And if you listen to what people are saying and they feel that they had a fair shake in terms of putting forth their position, I might disagree with you this time, but they will respect the fact that you listened to them, that you took into account their position, and that you've made an informed choice and not ignored them.
That's true. Oh, that's very true.
So that's one of the things that I bring, that I would bring to this job. That's just the way that I operate. So, and obviously I bring a lot of experience right now. I mean, I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 7 years. I've been on the Finance Committee. I've been the chairman of the Bylaw Review Committee. I've been on the Charter Review Committee, and I've been a town meeting member since 2002. So I know a lot about municipal happenings, and I can bring that. And I've worked with 4 state reps in my position as a Walpole Board of Selectmen member.
Now, what is a town meeting member? Like an advisory board? We have an advisory board in Norfolk. Is that the same sort of thing?
No, essentially, our charter says that instead of having an open town meeting where any citizen can go in and vote, we have representatives. So it's almost like being a state rep on a mini level.
Foxborough does that.
I'm not sure, but probably. There's a bunch of towns that have done that.
North Attleboro it is.
Okay.
North Attleboro, yeah.
So, basically we're making the financial decisions for the town. We, as a town meeting member, you appropriate the funds.
And that's elected?
That's correct.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been elected for that position. I'm not sure how many times. I've lost count at this point. But, so I bring that to the job. I've been up to Beacon Hill I follow the suburban coalition positions because education is one of the passions that I've had in terms of serving on the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and all the other things. And so I go up to the legislative breakfast that they have up at the State House. I interface with the legislators, and I'm certainly not afraid to bring the cause of the people that I'm representing up to the next level of government. I've done that when I was the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. We had an issue of trying to get plan design for our municipal employees in the healthcare area, and it was very difficult. I see you looking at your watch. Should I move on? I don't want to keep you. Okay. I don't want. But
it's for me. Really.
Okay, so so we had a failed negotiation. Is essentially what we had. We were trying to take over. To a better extent, how much the copay was and which plans would be available, maybe making it a little bit more like the private sector. But what we did do, despite our failure, was we kept our state representatives informed of what was going on and why we couldn't succeed and why this was hurting the town so much. And by no means do I take any credit for it, but I like to think we were a little cog in the law that was passed at the state level to allow cities and towns to place their employees into the GIC, the state level insurance, if you couldn't come to an agreement on plan design. And that legislation saved approximately $100 million for cities and towns. So that's the type of thing that I bring in my experience. Now, where would I serve? Which committees? I'd be
if you wished. I don't know how they do that. Whether you get to.
Yeah, you don't get to choose. But here's what I have to say about that. I'd be like a player on Bill Belichick's Patriots. I can play a lot of positions, and play them well. I have a lot of experience in the education area. That's been one of my passions. That's one of the things that I've been involved with. I could certainly serve on a judiciary committee. I know the law. I'm in the courts. I mean. I receive, because I'm in the courts, I receive a request to rate judges and things like that.
Right,
so
right.
I certainly have experience in that area. I know a lot about municipalities and the issues that they have. So there's a committee on municipalities. So those are just three, and I'm sure there are more. And I'd adapt to whatever committee that they would allow me to serve on. I think the Speaker of the House probably chooses the committees for you.
Yes.
So, I'd have to go and plead my case, and hopefully he wouldn't hold against me the fact that, I'm not associated with a party at this point, but I'm trying to do the work of the people and the work of the people in my district, and I would hope that he'd allow me to do that.
Well, I don't think there'll be any dearth of opportunities, because I had Richard Ross was on here last week, and I don't know how many committees he's on, several, because there's so few Republicans, and so I think you'd have a lot of opportunities. I mean, just not being a Democrat would give you entree to all these, and I think we need some other points of view over there.
That's true.
Now, I just wanted to ask you just a few questions here, and some of this goes back a little ways. Would you have voted for the tech tax that was repealed because it was it was just considered to be such a job killer, and for the tech companies? Yeah,
I mean, fairly easy question to start out with. Thank you very much, because clearly I wouldn't have been in favor of that. If you look at my history on the Walpole Board of Selectmen, I've tried to have a very pro-business, pro-job development agenda, and this was a job killer from the beginning. I know that they were trying to finance, I think, roads and expanding the T and things like that, but let's not do that and give up opportunities to grow jobs. When I'm out there campaigning and knocking on people's doors and talking to them, I would say, if not the number one, close to the number one concern is jobs and economic development.
Well, they were saying that about the automatic gas tax, which of course I'm hoping, I'm assuming that's going to make it to the ballot because they did get their signatures.
I signed it.
Oh, so did I. I was getting signatures. But I assume that's another one that you probably would have, the automatic feature of it.
Yeah, that's taking the voice away from your constituents. You need to be able to stand up and have looked at what the factors are at any particular time and say, okay, I'll stand behind this tax or not.
And it's just yeah, it was, and who knows where that would have led to. Automatic this, automatic that. And
Yes.
Speaking of the voice, again, this is going back now a couple of years ago. I'm sure you remember when they, somehow there was a way that the legislature got around allowing a ballot question, non-binding referendum question on gay marriage. And I was furious. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you have to let
Because
the
I think
people.
they knew they'd lose.
Right, right. Well, when I first ran for selectman, I called a selectman that I knew from another town, and I asked for some advice on this endeavor. And he gave me advice that I follow to this day, and I'll always follow. He said, do not fail to listen to the people and what they're saying. You may be very bright, but the collective wisdom and knowledge of the people that you're serving cannot be ignored, and they have a wisdom that collective has that you have to listen to.
And even apart from the wisdom, the point is you're supposed to represent these people.
Yes.
I mean, I think this is why people are so disgusted with Congress. I mean, there's so many, they're so against with many of the things that they're doing, and yet they just go headlong with their agenda and their ideology.
Yeah, I sit there and say, they're not trying to put forward an agenda that gets things done. I mean, people are looking for someone, or representatives in government that are trying to get the job done. Bickering back and forth on things that aren't really going to get the job done, that's not what I'm looking for.
Now, here's again this EBT reform issue. Now, thank God for Sean O'Connell. I mean, she really spearheaded that, and it's my understanding, although somebody told me you can't believe everything you read, but I didn't see any rebuttals in the Herald, that her own party was not pleased with her, and that she was pulled off of a committee, and of course she was the one that insisted on getting the balances on those cards. I mean, there was one that was $12,000, others that were several thousand. Now, do you think enough has been done? I mean, they're working on the photos, but I understand the Xerox Corporation had some problems, so there were a bunch of photos that didn't come out right. I mean, it's just, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line
things
is,
that go wrong.
yes, people aren't unwilling to be generous. Everyone's working hard for their money. They're trying to make a go of it and trying to better their position. But I don't think people are unwilling to give some of what they have if they know it's going to be used in a reasonable fashion and to better someone else's life.
Who needs it?
But when you see fraud and waste like that, when you see the system, I mean, if I'm giving money to someone and I'm expecting it to make their life better, and you see that it's not being used for necessaries. I mean, if they need them, if someone needs money, I'm willing to help them. But if it should go to necessaries, not to alcohol or
Tattoos,
tobacco
the beauty
yeah.
parlors,
I mean,
you name it, manicure.
I
It's
can't
just
imagine anyone
astonishing.
in the 9th Norfolk District that's giving their money to help someone out being satisfied or being happy at all that their money's being used in that way. It's just not right.
Well, to me, it was just a grab for votes. I mean, now I understand. I was reading this morning that apparently there's another 7,500 more that they can't locate that are getting these cards being automatically filled. And then they had, of course, there was like, 19,000 a while back that they sent, trying to get them to register to vote, thanks to I can't think of her name now. It's the senator whose daughter had some sort of a voter registration thing about welfare recipients, and 19,000 of them came back. But those cards are somewhere.
Yes. And they print those cards like they're going out of style.
Oh yeah.
And
No Social Security. You know, but that's a tough. I mean, she has really done a yeoman's job over there. Now let me ask you something. Let me ask you something else. What do you know? Well, I know you say you don't really do criminal, but what do you make of that very light sentence that Amy Duken got? Now she was involved in the crime lab. She was the one that was churning out all of these tainted, one after another, results for evidence.
Yeah, I followed that story closely. You know,
It's a lack of supervision. What else could it be?
yes, it's hard to second guess a judge who's looking at all the information. You know, I understand they're looking at much more than what we're looking at. I mean, when you or I look at it and say, how many people were released from jail that should have been in jail?
Do you know
how many
how
people
many
were
Do you
in
know?
jail that shouldn't have been in jail in the first place? And how much is this going to cost the taxpayer? You know, it's easy to argue that it's outrageous that the sentence was that short.
What,
maybe
2
there's
years, was it?
yeah, maybe there's more. You know, maybe there's more information that was available to the judge. Maybe there's more to it. But I know, you know, at first blush, I certainly thought that was light.
Well, our judges are very liberal.
Some are, so, you know.
I mean, wouldn't you say? Well, you don't. Again, you don't do the. You know. But
Well, I know the judges to some degree, certainly in Norfolk County, and you know, it's like anything else. Different judges have a different bent on it. Some of them are more conservative and tougher than others, and in any event, you know, that's what this judge decided. I haven't seen all the information, but on first blush, it doesn't seem like it was that stiff.
how? I mean, they're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to
Yes.
retry. Do you have any idea about how many? Was it 3,000 people were affected? I mean, wrongly, and then ones that got out, and ones that, and they've already had to re-arrest some of the ones. It's awful that got out because of this.
My research said it was 40,000 criminal cases.
Is that so?
Yes.
40,000 individuals?
Cases. So whether there might be more than one individual involved in a case,
God, really?
but it's a big number.
Oh my God.
And you know, that's one of the problems that needs to be looked at in government. I mean, there has to be oversight of what's going on, like the EBT cards, like you know,
And the compounding labs.
I mean, it seems to me that you have to instill maybe a little bit of a different attitude within the government workers. I mean, government workers should be working for the people that they're serving. And that seems to be flipped on its head in many cases. Don't get me wrong, I work in the town of Walpole. There are great public servants. There are terrific ones. But when you call into the state for something,
and whole different.
You know, they act like you're bothering them.
Exactly.
Not all of them, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I mean, I've called places and been treated great, but that should be the standard, is that they're servicing the public. And you have to maybe change the culture a little bit.
Now, this was a question that I don't know if you recall this. I'm reaching back a little too far, but do you remember the Herald did some sort of they did a series of stories about the amount of time that people in the legislature were actually spending now I know they have to be with their constituents. I know they have to sort of balance that. But they wanted to get the records of who came in, because of course there's also the per diem, and you know, some people don't take their per diems. I know Senator Ross says he doesn't, but I know a lot of people do. And of course, if it's a very lax system, you can just claim that per diem and not even be in there. And I guess Duvall told them they should set up a camera at the exit to the parking garage, which they did. I don't know if you recall this. And then the state trooper came over and so forth. And they got a lot of pushback from people in the legislature, you know, wanting to ask people, you know, what is your schedule? How often are you here? You know, in terms of attending sessions and that sort of thing. Do you recall that story or?
I didn't see that, but it comes up time and again. You know, that public officials aren't spending sufficient time doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. I mean, we've seen it. There's been clerks that, you know, over the years there's been that type of thing. As I understand it, and I don't know anything about per diems or anything like that because I haven't looked into any of that stuff. But in terms of the time that you spend at the State House in session, I think that's controlled by the Speaker of the House, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, you're supposed to be in there, and then however long the session lasts
Right.
is how long it lasts.
Exactly.
That's why I know you had a question on the Rule 28. Is that what it is? Rule 28 proposition? Yeah, Rule 28, which talks about allowing some control to be wrested from the Speaker of the House. If you want to make a motion as a member of the
No,
House
but
of
do
Reps.
talk about that. No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, at least on the Board of Selectmen, now I know it's not as many people. We have 5 members of the board, but any member of the board can make a motion, and then it's discussed and it's voted on. And I think you need to have a little bit more of that. You need to have people be able to, representatives be able to bring things forward and not just solely have control of the session with the Speaker. I understand
That's the way it is now?
that's my understanding, yeah. So
I didn't
I
know
understand how having control over the session is, you know, it allows things to be done efficiently, but there should be, I mean, we have open forum
Exactly.
in our Walpole selectmen meetings so
yes.
that people can come in and talk. There should be at least some time set aside for open forum or a Rule 28 type of activity. I'd like to see that.
Now, in terms of I keep coming back to this, that you're not really too much involved with criminal, but the case of Philip Chisholm up there in Danvers, that terrible murder of that teacher, and there was some talk about the death. Now he's 14.
Yep.
There was some talk about the death penalty for him. Do you think there's any chance of that happening? I mean, I don't.
No.
And I'm not necessarily against it, but I mean, what do you think is how that might shake out?
Well, I know that at a certain age that's below the age of majority, they can try you as an adult. And I'm not sure whether it applies to him or not.
Does it have also to do with the nature of the crime
I think on a murder case.
and of how bad it was?
Yeah, an intention, premeditated type of murder.
And it was. We found that out.
That's what it looks like,
Right.
yeah. So that's just a horrible, horrible case. And especially where, the individual he moved from somewhere else
Tennessee.
into the town, and then all of a sudden this happens. It just it strikes fear in people of who's coming into our town, and it's just not. It's something that is going to end poorly, I think, in all respects.
But do you think they would invoke the death penalty in this state ever?
No,
I don't either.
I don't see that
I don't know.
happening in Massachusetts. I know that Gary Sampson, they're
Right.
invoking the death penalty there, but I think that's on a federal level.
It is. I
Yeah.
believe it is.
Yeah.
Listen, we're kind of ending on a grim note, but thank you so much for coming in. I wish you all the luck.
Okay,
And you're really great with the answers. I've learned something today.
great.
And listen, I want you to have a Merry Christmas and good luck. So, so thank you for watching State and Local. My guest was Chris Timson, who's running for the state rep in the 9th Norfolk District. Listen, thank you so much, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry
for
Christmas.
coming.
Yeah, I
All righty.
appreciate you having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Take care.
It's my pleasure.
All right.